This week on our RV interview of the week, we are going to continue our series of talking to different YouTube influencers out there. And today we have two of the most influential of the influencers, the RV Geeks. You know them as Peter and John. You've watched their very helpful YouTube channel, the RV Geeks, in which they show you how to do various modifications and maintenance to the RV. You've probably heard about and watched their brand new Discovery Channel series called the RVers. We'll talk about that. And we're going to get a chance to know them a little bit better, to understand their backstory and how this all came, and why it is so important to all of us to learn a lesson that the geeks learned right away. And that was time is short. We don't know how much time we have. That's the realization that sent them out on a road to the RV lifestyle that began 17 years ago. I think you're going to enjoy this interview with Peter and John, the RV Geeks.
Time now for the RV Podcast Interview of the Week. Interesting, entertaining, and helpful information about the RV lifestyle. Here's Mike with this week's interview.
Well, Peter and John join us right now from their RV, and it's a joy to have the RV Geeks on the podcast and on the and on our YouTube channel, guys. Good to see you.
Thank you so much for having us here, Mike. Great to be here.
It's an honor.
Now, you are coming to everybody from the mecca of RVers in every January, and that is Quartzsite, Arizona. What are you doing out there? And I think you're probably surrounded by a few 10,000s of your fans and fellow RVers out there. What's it like?
It's busy. Yeah, this is a town that swells from, I think, a population of about 3,000 up to somewhere around 250,000. Is that right?
Give or take.
Yeah. And that's just in January for the show. And one thing that I want to mention is that Quartzsite is here other times than during the show. We usually come during the shoulder season in November, December, or February, March. Every now and then, though, we'll come here for the madness where there are actually traffic jams during the show.
and most people are boondocking, right? It's all boondocking.
The majority of people are out in BLM or out on the LTVA, the long-term visitor areas. So there's not many people who are hooked up.
It is amazing. And I know you're out there with lots of other folks. There's the big show is going on now. I think Escapeers. I saw it on your shirt, Peter. Isn't that what?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. They had a big gathering.
I actually didn't think about what I was going to wear for this today. I forgot we were going to be on video, but you could see me wearing a shirt like this just about any time.
This is just to remind everyone how warm it is here in Quartzsite this time of year. This is the place to be.
Yeah, the short sleeves and a light colored shirt because it gets too hot in the sun.
Well, we were all together just a week or so ago in Tampa where it was 83 and humid, and I'm back now in Michigan getting ready to hit the road for about 5 months, and it's back in freezing and snow. So
you must be all confused then.
I am totally confused. Now, for those of our viewers and listeners who may not be real familiar with your backstory and how it all started, let's start off with tell everybody about the RV you're in, and I know there's a bit of a story on that, on how you have made it probably the most famous of all the Class A's we see out there among YouTube influencers. So tell us about that, and then we'll get into your story.
Well, sure. The RV we're in right now is our second RV. It's a 2005 Newmar Mountain Aire. It's a 43-foot diesel pusher, and we have indeed done a lot of modifications to this to make it our own. I hear that a lot. Anytime I start looking at a new RV, he reminds me we can't recreate all the things we've done over the past 15 years.
Yeah, we've been on the road for full time for a total of 17 years, and we had never RV'd before at all. We simply bought an RV and sold our house and all our stuff and drove away. And we originally planned to be on the road for about 2 years. Our intention was not to stay full-timing, but to use it as a means to find some new place to live that we preferred over where we started.
Now, 17 years is a long time, but you kind of glossed over one of the reasons that you decided to hit the road. And I think that has so much resonance with so many people. You had cancer. Talk about that and the realization that gave you about time.
Yeah, well, there were actually two things. One I don't talk about very often, but I'll mention today. There was one other more serious thing than having survived cancer. So I had a very rare form of cancer for men. I actually had breast cancer, which does happen in men, but it's extremely rare. And I was very young for that. If that does happen in men, it's usually the kind of thing that happens in their 60s or 70s. I was in my 30s. And so that you would think maybe that would be a wake-up call that would make you realize how short life is. But I think because I was so young, I felt immortal. And once I beat it, which I did, I'm now, I can't tell you how many years I am in remission because it would give away my age, but it's more than 20 years in remission. And once I beat that, I just went back to the grind. We both had corporate jobs and kept working them.
Well, and I think that's somewhat normal because when you are faced with something like that, when you're faced with a disease that could be potentially life-threatening, the thing that you want the most is to get back to normal, right? To get back to what everything was like before you ever found out about that. So we just literally dove right back into normal life.
Yeah. So then what really led to us RVing were two things that piled on top of that 3 years after I had had surgery. One is I had a second cancer scare, thought it had recurred. Now it turned out that it didn't, it was benign, but around that same time, my younger brother died, also in his 30s. And that was a very sobering wake-up call about how short life is and how I had ignored that fact when I originally got sick. And it was really that was the big catalyst that made us realize that we get one life, it's very short, we better do something that other than wait for retirement.
And I think the saddest stories we've ever heard are from people who say they've worked hard all their lives, they save up, and their plan for their retirement is to hit the road in an RV. And then once they retire, something happens, something financial, something health-wise, that stops them from being able to do it. And that sort of loss of being able to pursue a dream is, really sad for us because we feel very grateful that we took the leap at an early age, and nothing can take these years away from us. There's nothing that will undo the fact we've been able to travel so extensively for the last 17 years.
I'm so glad to hear you say that because every week, like you guys, I hear from people say, oh, we're going to do this in 5 years, or we're getting ready to retire in a couple of years. And I keep saying to them, why are you waiting? I mean, everybody's got to handle the finances correctly, but you can still get one. You can still get out there and maximize your time because we truly don't know what's around the next corner or the next month.
Right. And I think that that ability to actually continue working has changed dramatically since we hit the road. To give you a sense of time and how long we've been out here, we went full time 4 years before the iPhone was invented.
No.
So that
there was such a time.
Yes, can you imagine?
How is that for an idea of a time frame?
Yeah,
so it was the idea that so many people, including ourselves, are working remotely now and able to support ourselves. It's allowed people to go out on the road and experience this life at a much younger age.
And it's definitely a growing population. More and more people are doing this full time at a younger age because they can support themselves.
Now, one of the other arguments I hear along those same lines, people say, yeah, well, you guys are you YouTube stars? Well, you guys didn't always start out as a YouTube star. In fact, YouTube wasn't even, it had barely existed when you were doing it. Tell everybody how the RV Geek channel came about.
I'll drop back very briefly before that and tell you how we earned a living before YouTube was a thing.
Because we did scour the country looking for the money tree and literally found that there is no place in this country where money will grow on a tree, unfortunately.
No. So what we did was when we realized we wanted to continue RVing, we realized that we were going to have to figure out a way to earn a living. We had been living off savings and that we were watching that dwindle. So we started RVgeeks website design about 13 years ago. And that still thrives to this day. As a matter of fact, we had to scramble to get online with you today because we're taking a new website live today. And what we do is we are very niche. Did I get that right?
Yeah. Take your pick.
Either one. We are
depends on whether you're in French or whether you're in France or in the US.
I like niche, and we have a our niche, and that is RV parks. We only design websites for RV parks and campgrounds. And it fit perfectly with our area of expertise, that we know RVing and we are their customers, so we really understand them. So that is how we earn our primary living. And for people who think that a YouTube channel is going to make you rich, that hasn't done that for us.
Oh, I see
So
that.
if they think we're big and they think they're going to get big and get rich, there are other things that you can do out here by staying connected. So the way our channel started, to answer your question about that,
Pretty accidental.
It was very, very accidental. And it was really, we think, very organic. And it's very meaningful to us the way it happened. Most people we know who don't RV don't understand RVing. They can't imagine that we could be sleeping in a parking lot and be just as comfortable as in a resort. And they don't get it. And so most of our friends and family have no interest in RVing. We had one couple who were very interested and were enthusiastic about sharing our passion for what we do. And we invited them out on a 10-day road trip through the national parks of southern Utah. And it was a real epic road trip. And
we covered everything. We stayed at luxury RV resorts. We stayed in national park campgrounds. We stayed in a Walmart. We stayed in
a commercial campground.
Commercial campgrounds. We covered the gamut, so they got to see basically the whole spectrum of what life is like on the road.
We wanted to expose them to what every aspect of what RVing was in just 10 days. And being
crash course.
Some people know that I used to run the training and safety program for a large bus company. I put them behind the wheel of our motorhome for a large part of that trip and taught them to drive.
It was like a vacation for him in that regard.
Yeah. So they got back.
Now we know what busman's holiday really means, right? You get your friends to drive your RV. Yeah.
Well, it is, and I could sit back and watch. So apparently our passion rubbed off on them, and they immediately bought an RV. Very quickly after our trip, they bought an RV, and coincidentally, they bought an 05 Newmar, which is what we have.
Wow.
I wonder why.
They got a Country Star, and they fell in love with having it, but they had lots of questions. And the way our channel started was, I started making some very informal videos. While John was inside designing websites, I was outside with a camera in one hand and a screwdriver in the other, and showing them how to do things, how to dump their tanks and sanitize their water system and change the oil in their generator. And very poorly edited videos, no voiceover, literally doing it while I was voicing it, one take, done.
I wish we still had the outtakes from all of that, because I was in here working on the laptop here and go,
a lot of cursing.
Oh, shoot. Oh,
Yeah.
no.
That wasn't the word I used, but it was close.
Yeah, close. Yeah.
So-
It starts with S. Yeah.
Yeah. So there was a lot of cursing on those videos. So we decided, I think wisely in retrospect, that putting those out publicly, not just for them, but other people might also like to use those tutorials. And we didn't even monetize our channel for years. We didn't know you could. We just put them out for people to use with no intention of trying to be anything other than helpful to our friends and other RVers. And it just mushroomed from there.
Yeah. In the beginning, it was hysterical. We thought it was funny when we'd get a comment every couple of weeks or every month, and somebody would say, "Oh, thanks for this. This was great." And we'd be all thrilled, like, woohoo, somebody else watched.
You know, the thing about your channel that is so great is, even though most of the work you're doing is on your Mountain Aire, your Class A Mountain Aire, the basics of it apply to pretty much every RV. And that takes me to the next area. How hard is it? I'm talking now about the people who are just starting to get into this. Maybe hard is not the question. How much of priority is it that people are at least somewhat handy with doing it themselves?
I think it can really improve the quality of life for an RVer to be handy, or if not handy, a little fearless to try new things, to try something out. I've always been very good at taking things apart, figuring out how they work, and putting them back together. If that is something that someone has a curiosity about and they like to know how things work, that's maybe the most important thing, to be a little fearless and see if you can figure out why something isn't working the way it should.
But it's certainly not a requirement. I mean, we know lots of people who are, all thumbs. They're not touching anything, or even just prefer not to. Their attitude is, I bought this RV and it's for my recreation. I don't want to spend time working on it. And if there's something that goes wrong, I'm taking it to the dealer and going to let them handle it.
Yeah.
And that's perfectly fine too. I think, you know, it really just depends sometimes on your budget. It's certainly a lot cheaper to be able to take care of things on your own. And, you know, to be honest, there's nothing particularly rocket science about an RV. You know, I mean, a lot of the systems are very much like households. The construction is very similar. The plumbing is very similar. The electrical is very similar. It's just that there's two electrical systems. One's 12 volt and one's AC. So, you know, there's nothing particularly exotic about it. It does just take a little bit of patience and being willing to maybe hit the Googles.
Well, we have no formal training of any kind when it comes to being mechanical, but we are somewhat mechanically inclined.
And I like to say he's really good at turning wrenches and I'm really good at pushing buttons. So between the two of us, we can figure just about anything out.
He pushes my buttons a lot.
My job. What can I say?
Somebody's got to do it, right?
That's right. That's right.
If there were a couple of things though, that you think that most RVers should be comfortable with either understanding or doing, top of your head, what would you suggest that every RVer needs to know and understand about their RV?
Well, here's one that isn't directly related to doing something yourself, but it's, I think, maybe a reality check with what an RV is. So we know that people buy new RVs or, you know, even used ones, and they say, well, this isn't working or that isn't working. I have to fix this or that. I have to take it in for service or repairs. An RV is really much more like a house than a car. It's kind of a combination of both, but it's more like a house than a car. And if you own a home, anyone who owns a home, even a brand new home, knows that when you move into a brand new home, you're going to have what's typically called a punch list that you're going to go over with the builder for them to address those things. And they're I think going in with that expectation that there are going to be certain things that need to be looked at as you move forward in your first 3, 6, 12 months in an RV. That facing that reality check as it being more like a house than a car is going to make a lot of people more satisfied, or at least less dissatisfied with their experience in an RV. And then the other side of it is when it comes to those needed repairs, I think that the ability to try to take on, as we mentioned, a few of the minor ones. And if you're worried about doing that, if you're not very mechanically inclined, you can keep a stock of wine around
or beer
to give
or both
people.
or both.
We recently helped someone fix their RV who was nearby. Now, we normally try not to work on strangers' RVs because we were concerned in some cases about liability. They think because we're on YouTube that we're technicians, and we're not. This was for a friend who was parked near us, and they were having a problem. They came over to thank us with a bottle of wine because it wasn't something they could do themselves. And I'm not looking for wine, thank you. I'm not trying to elicit that response.
But that's often a way, you know, and the RV community really is an incredibly welcoming and helpful community. So more often than not, even for us, when we're outside in an RV, if we're in an RV park doing a quick fix on something, more than likely our neighbor's going to come over and be like, oh, hey, what are you doing? Do you need a hand there? So if we were not able to handle it ourselves, you know, now there's another brain and another set of hands, and maybe somebody who's more experienced or who has had that exact experience, who could now, you know, give you some guidance or help turn a wrench here or there. That, you know, you don't have to be the only one to take it all on your own. People are very willing to jump in and assist. So that's another thing. There is the safety net.
And that's true online as well. There are tremendous resources online. Besides, of course, there are YouTube videos. But there are...
I don't know where they would find them.
But there are also,
Google, you'll get it.
There are also forums online and owners groups, and people are very helpful there.
Yeah, but I mean, the most of the things that happen, you know, for the most part, are fairly simple carpentry tasks. So you're going to have some nail pops. You're going to have, you know, screws holding your door hinge in place may come loose, or maybe they weren't even installed properly at the factory. So if you can do some simple screw turning and have a couple of screws or bolts around, those fix those. Minor electrical stuff, you know, so again, it's just,
some people are a little nervous about electrical, and I understand that.
And then plumbing is basically you're going to be tightening a fitting or replacing a washer.
Everyone needs to stay within their own comfort zone.
Yeah.
I like what you said about an RV is much more like a house. I had a friend tell me, though, it's like a house that is experiencing a constant 5.6 earthquake as it drives down the road.
That's exactly right.
It is inevitable that things are going to get loose. You mentioned electrical, and I want to just go over three quick things, and we don't have to talk long about it, but your take on them and what's important. Because this, I think, so many people they've heard so much about boondocking. They want to try it. Some of the RV manufacturers and some of the salespeople are kind of pushing people into certain things. But in general, let's talk about solar. How important is solar? And what's the minimum that you guys would recommend? How many panels or how many watts?
That's a great question. I'm glad you asked it that way so that we can let people know that question can't actually be answered in a simple fashion, because it starts with what your needs are. Yeah. And you need to do, if someone wants to spend a lot of time boondocking, they're going to want to start by doing something generally called an audit, or an energy audit, where they determine through use of a small device, which measures the amount of current that's being used for certain things, or watching their batteries or their experience. They want to know, how much power do you use? And that's the first question.
Yeah. Well, and I think the other side of that same coin, Mike, is the fact that, like you said, a lot of salespeople and a lot of people in the industry are, sort of pushing people towards certain decisions. We've gotten questions from people who have literally just bought an RV, never RV'd before, and are planning on putting on like a 2,000 watt solar system on their RV and put lithium batteries in, but they've never dry camped before. They don't even know if they're going to like it.
Right.
So, we'd recommend that people actually try it with their existing systems first, to see if you even like the idea of being out in the middle of nowhere. For some people, that's not their gig. They'd rather be hooked up in a resort and have access to a hot tub and restaurants and those kinds of things. And that's fine.
There's no wrong way to RV.
Yeah. So, we like to, like we said, the energy audit is a great thing. First, try boondocking. Go out for just a night or two. See whether
try
or not
in
you
your
like
driveway, in your own driveway.
Well,
yeah, exactly.
So better yet, try it at a full hookup RV park. And the way you try that is, at a full hookup RV park, is you empty your black and gray tanks and fill your fresh water and charge your batteries. And now you flip off the circuit breaker on the pedestal, you turn off the water spigot and close your gray and black valves and act like you're not connected to utilities. And now you can try running as little water as possible and try using as little power as possible and see how your resources go. And then when you get up one morning and you're standing in a puddle of water in the shower, you can just go outside and open the gray valve, because you've got a safety net.
It definitely takes the stress out.
And you then know how much, how long you can use that fresh water before it's empty.
Correct. And on the sizing of solar too, it varies so dramatically with the size of the RV. So a smaller rig, like a small travel trailer or a small Class B, has smaller power demands generally, not necessarily, but generally, than a 45-foot diesel pusher. So there's just more things in here that are even just parasitically draining power from your batteries without you running anything.
Speaking of which, let's go to the inverter. I talked to somebody, it was actually at Tampa last week, and they said, I've got a 3,000 watt inverter. And I said, it's a good thing I get it, because I run out of power overnight. And I said, when you're boondocking, and they say, and that inverter, it helps, but I run out, and maybe I need a bigger one. Well, what they don't realize is that running the inverter all night, at 3,000, that's what's draining your batteries. It's that
absolutely.
You don't need to run the inverter all night unless, some people.
In some cases you might. Now, interestingly, most people do not need to run their inverter all the time, with one exception. And that's if they have a residential refrigerator. So a unit with a residential refrigerator is going to have one of two situations. They'll be like we are, with one inverter that the refrigerator is hooked up to, and it needs to be on 24/7, 365, which ours is. Or they maybe have some rigs that came with a residential fridge might have a dedicated inverter, which is smaller just to run the fridge. And that's the one they leave on, and the other one can be shut off.
Yeah, which certainly is a big help. And it's actually something we have sort of on our list to consider doing, because we did retrofit our RV with a residential refrigerator. It was not originally equipped with one. So
and you're in a large Class A.
Right.
And you don't see those on the smaller ones, which usually my niche audience tend to be Class C.
Yeah, much less common.
It's much less common. And I will tell you this, that if somebody is planning to spend a lot of time off grid, they really want to have an RV fridge optimally, because nothing uses more power than a residential fridge. And as a result, we've recently finally upgraded our solar panels from 375 watts to 1300, which was long overdue.
Right.
We're about to put a video out about that, actually. And we last year or year before last went to a lithium battery bank. And so those sorts of things make it easier to RV off grid. But having an RV refrigerator, propane for electric rather than a residential fridge is probably one of the best things you can do if you want to stay off grid.
Yeah, prior to upgrading our RV to the residential refrigerator, we had, a standard Class A bank of, 4 6-volt deep cycle batteries in series parallel with only 375 watts of solar.
And we never needed to run our generator.
Yeah, for the most part, we didn't need to run our generator if we were just reasonably frugal with our power usage.
Yep.
I mean, we didn't sit all day watching TV or working on our laptops.
But power,
we could get by with a lot less power.
Power is actually easier to replace than water, because you can run a generator if you need to. And we will go sit for 2 weeks at a time off grid with the water resources that we have. But if you run out of water capacity, either you empty your fresh tank or fill your black or gray, you have to either leave or you have to do something that we have never done and don't endorse, which is letting some gray water out into the desert, which we
Or
don't,
into a portable,
which is not something that anyone should be doing.
We had one of those blue boys. It was probably a 25 or 30 gallon, blue tank on wheels.
External thing, yeah.
Yeah, we had one of those early on, and we found that we hated using it because it was just sort of messy, and then where do you store it? We're full time in our RV, so having that big thing taking up space in the basement was eating up a lot of good storage room.
You can also
was not a good choice.
You can also refresh your fresh water resource by getting a bladder and going and getting water and bringing it back. Again, we don't do that. We limit ourselves to about 2 weeks.
Yeah, usually by the time 2 weeks is rolled around, we're ready to move on.
All these are great pieces of advice for folks thinking about. And I think if I had to summarize what this section we just talked about, it was try what you already have. Understand what it does, what you might need, and then it's always easy to add this stuff. I mean, it's pretty easy to add solar. It's pretty easy to replace batteries. Start off with what you have. I think that's really great advice.
Don't invest before you know you like it.
And really, the biggest thing you want to do if you're going to boondock is practice the techniques that make it comfortable. And that is simple things like, if you go to bed when it gets dark out and get up when it gets light out, you'll use fewer lights, and you'll get the warmth of the sun keeping you warm and save on propane for heating. And same thing with water. Learn to shower. We each shower in a gallon of water, no problem. A thorough shower.
We don't have a lot of hair, so that's not.
We have an unfair advantage because we don't have. I'm follicularly challenged, so we don't have a lot of water usage up there.
You mentioned the sun, and one of the great tips I thought that was really fun on your channel was how to park your RV. As we kind of wind down the interview here, would you guys share that? Which direction should you park?
We always face, so we face east because we have a motorhome and the sun comes through the windshield in the morning, and that warms us up, and then it goes down on the back of the RV in the evening and keeps us from getting too hot.
Yeah, because the back of our RV is the full width closet, there's more insulation between the back of the RV and the bedroom, so it is actually better insulated and keeps the heat of the afternoon sun.
And I'm actually really glad that you mentioned that, because I'd like to mention that particular tip for boondocking appeared on our television show, The RVers, recently, where we talked a great deal. That was in one of the first episodes about which way we face and why, and how we manage our resources. That was on the Discovery Channel and PBS about.
I was going to say, and to be clear, of course, pointing east is not necessarily the end-all be-all. It's what's correct for us because of the configuration of our RV. And a fifth wheel, you may want to point the other direction because your big window is in the rear, and so you're going to get more solar heating through the big window that way.
But in general, that's also for the awning too. For the awning, as the sun goes against the sky.
Yes. Yeah, and you may notice that camera sitting behind us. That wasn't put there as a prop for what we're doing today. We're actually in the middle of shooting a piece for the RVers with Anthony Nally, the creator and producer of the show. We're creating a piece about boondocking while we're here in Quartzsite, and we have shot half of it, and the other half will be shot within the next 2 days.
And that's what I want to wrap up our interview with, is talk a little bit about the RVers. Anthony, of course, is the guy who did the Aviators, this awesome series on PBS. He's just, and plus he's a really nice guy. But you guys, along with Technomedia and along with our friends from Morton's on the Move, are the host of this brand new Discovery Channel PBS series called The RVers. Now that's just finished its first season, but have you guys seen any effect on it? More people recognizing you from that? Is it a fun show to do? Are you enjoying doing it? Because you've got enough that you're already doing on the side.
Yeah, we actually have made one major change, and that's for the first time we have brought a partner in to work on websites with us. And he is a fellow full-time RVer. As a matter of fact, he'll be at the R Village rally with us down in Florida. And he'll get a chance to meet everybody, including Anthony, who, by the way, is parked directly across from us here while we're here in Quartzsite.
You mean Anthony's not in a 5-star hotel down back in Phoenix and commuting by jet?
He's a full-time RVer, and he has 2 RVs.
He has a 5th wheel that he keeps on site, and he travels in a Class B. He and his wife are here in their Class B, and
he's also a musician. He
is a talented drummer, and his band Wicked Truth played 2 huge nights here in town.
I think my ears are still ringing.
Yeah. But to answer your question about the show, we are getting recognized more and more, and so we'll be going further and further off-grid boondocking to have our quiet time. And the show has been very exciting to do.
It's a lot of fun.
So in case you're not aware, that besides being hosts on the show, John and I are also executive producers, and I have directed many of the segments. I found that my having directed many YouTube videos has come in handy, and the skills that I developed doing that have allowed me to direct the segment we're doing here on boondocking. I'm directing that one. And
that's awesome.
It's been exciting to do, and to see our footage and the work we've done be professionally edited by a television editor and put into television format has been very exciting.
It's amazing how different the footage can look when a professional editor is busy doing it, as opposed to us just, poking around on our computers here.
And also, one of the most common questions we get asked is, have you been picked up for another season? So I can announce to you here that the show has been contracted and secured through 5 seasons minimum, and that is a done deal. And we have been contracted with the show for 5 years. You'll see
a long list of topics you'll see
people come and go. Tom and Kate came in as we were in the middle of shooting season 1 already, as we were kind of getting started shooting season 1. Some other people may come in. I think Chris and Cherie have already made it public that they have opted not to continue with the show.
As full-time hosts.
As full-time hosts, they will. I think they've already shot a segment that's going to appear in season 2, but they may come and go here and there after that.
Guests,
But so there will be a lot of different perspectives on what's happening, and many different topics from every angle of RVing.
Solo RVers, women RVers,
families, international travel.
There's
a lot to come.
5 years. Well, we know you'll be at. See, that'll put you almost 20 years then. We'll put you over 20 years. Yeah, quarter century.
We're going to celebrate our silver RV.
The RV geezers will change it too at the end of that for you. All right,
well, since so many of our friends are younger than we are, we already feel a little bit like the RV geezers, but we
feel the same thing. We feel like their grandparents, but we're doing more than they are. I can't believe it. Yeah. So it's fun.
You were giving us the list of what you've been up to, Mike, and it made us want to go take a nap. You are out there rocking it.
I think we're going to do that as soon as we're done.
It's so much fun. It really is. Listen, you guys, thank you so much. We will put links to all the information on how people can follow you, from your Patreon community to your YouTube channel to your web development to the RVers TV series.
Mike,
thank you.
I appreciate that. And I'll just interrupt one quick thing. We are no longer on Patreon, but we'll send you any other links that you might want.
Well, I saw that before. Yeah, I've always thought about Patreon, but I just didn't want to seem like I'm begging. So
the thing was, so we did it.
You had to do something extra. It was more work. Yeah,
we were providing extra exclusive content that was very time consuming, and that's why after 2 years, we decided with the television show, it was juggling too much, and so we politely stepped back.
That's smart people, because the idea is doing less or working less hard and maybe eliminating the stuff so you can concentrate on what you're enjoying the most. And we're glad you guys are going to be doing the TV series for another 5 years, and we look forward to seeing you back out on the road. And next time, let's spend some time hanging out together when we hook up face to face.
We would really love to do that.
Yeah, it's a little too crowded out there right now.
We'll show you where it's not. We have some secret places.
That's
we can't say here
we
on
can't
the air.
divulge.
All right, I'll send you a note. Peter and John, the RV Geeks, thank you guys so much.
Thanks,
Thank you
Mike.
so much, Mike. So great to talk to you.
Well, we want to thank Peter and John, the RV Geeks, for making time for us in our interview of the week. We'll put links to all of the different resources and websites that you can follow them. That'll be in the description below. Meantime, though, would you do us a favor and give this interview a thumbs up? And we'd also appreciate it very much if you would subscribe to the RV Lifestyle channel. We have new videos 3 times every week right here on YouTube. When you do that, if you click that little bell icon up in the top right, you'll be notified when we have new videos online. I'm Mike Wendland. And before you go, why don't you click that video over there, and you can follow another one of our RV adventures right here on YouTube. Happy trails.